I love you.
Hearing his boyfriend's loving confession, Josh felt both happy and shy, but he didn't know it would be the last time he ever heard those words from him. Aiden felt ashamed for betraying the pack. After much thought, he decided to confess to the leader. If he was lucky enough to survive, they would leave New Orleans together and roam the world. Josh was caught off guard by this decision, but he knew how much determination and courage it took for a werewolf to make the choice to leave his pack. As Aiden turned to walk away, Josh called out to him, saying he was willing to leave with him. Aiden breathed a sigh of relief at those words. The two looked at each other, smiled, and embraced in a kiss. But they didn't know this would be the last kiss they would ever share.
I love you too.
Just before Aiden left, Josh called out to him again. Jackson and Haley were trapped in the safe house, feeling anxious and on edge. Jackson just wanted to take his wife and Hope back to his territory, where he felt confident he could keep them safe. But Haley insisted that Dahlia would use magic to track Hope, and unless they could suppress their daughter's witch powers, there would be no escaping her. No matter where they ran, Aiden volunteered to help, hoping to make up for his previous mistakes. He sneaked into Klaus's room and hid the shackles that could seal a witch's power under his clothes. Klaus caught him acting suspiciously in broad daylight and asked what he was doing there. Panicking, Aiden grabbed a stuffed rabbit toy and said he was there to get Hope's favorite toy. Driven by his love for his daughter, Klaus's judgment was severely clouded. Yes, that's right, he believed it. Even Josh was astonished by how gullible he was.
Oh, right. Yes, I'm sure that Claus Color Me Paranoid Mikaelson totally fell for your whole I came across the river for Hope's bunny ruse.
Aiden asked Davina if she could try transferring the magic from the shackles onto a smaller object. Davina decided to give it a try. She took off the bracelet that Cole had given her, placed it on the table, and began chanting a spell. Meanwhile, Marcel found Davina and asked if the dagger capable of sealing Klaus's power was ready, but Davina was upset with Marcel for neglecting her recently. She said the dagger was something Cole left for her as a means of protection, and she would use it whenever she saw fit. Marcel had no choice but to leave. Frustrated, Aiden handed the completed bracelet to Jackson. Jackson's mood lifted instantly. Seizing the moment, Aiden confessed that he had been manipulated by Klaus and had even considered taking the position of pack leader. Jackson, however, said that Aiden hadn't betrayed the pack. Everything Aiden had done for Hope was enough to atone for his mistakes, and he decided not to pursue the matter further. But Aiden was resolute, declaring that he would leave the pack. The two brothers embraced tightly. Jackson assured him that the pack would always consider him family and that he would be welcome to return anytime. In high spirits, Aiden bought a bouquet of fresh flowers to celebrate the new life ahead, but the vibrant flowers withered instantly. Dahlia appeared before Aiden, without giving Aiden a chance to react. She used magic to force him into a nearby alley. She said she didn't mean to hurt Aiden, but that Aiden was the perfect trigger for the Mikaelsons siblings to kill each other. Dahlia casually inflicted wounds on Aiden's face, ignoring his agonizing screams and pain. Suddenly, she clenched her hand tightly, and blood began seeping from Aiden's chest. He fell to his knees in agony, his heart flying out of his chest alive. Dahlia coldly tossed Aiden's heart beside his lifeless body and walked away without a second glance. Meanwhile, Josh was with Davina, imagining a bright future for himself. He spent the entire day saying goodbye to his friends, but the moment he turned into the alley, the smile vanished from Josh's face.
No. No.
Eerie vines were quickly crawling up the walls, and crimson flowers were quietly blooming. This was Dahlia using magic to locate Hope. She quickly appears near the safe house, but with a hand gesture, all cell phone signals disappear. With another gesture, the werewolf on lookout was killed instantly. Haley clutched her young daughter, filled with anxiety. Dahlia soon appeared at the door of the cabin. She didn't dare enter the safe house, so she stood at the entrance, issuing stern threats. She said that the spell protecting the house was weakening and that she would wait until dusk tomorrow. She hoped Haley would have the sense to bring the child to her voluntarily. Having just killed Michael, Klaus was in an exceptionally good mood, but Elijah pointed out that because of his reckless actions, they had now completely lost Freya, a powerful ally. Just as Michael had predicted, Freya refused to work with Klaus. She issued an ultimatum to Rebecca.
You and Elijah have a choice. From now on, it's either Klaus or me.
Meanwhile, Klaus was happily engrossed in his art. Elijah asked Klaus where he had hidden Michael's ashes, but Klaus said he couldn't tell him, fearing he would turn around and inform Freya. Rebecca and Marcel vented their frustration about Klaus always acting unilaterally. With the looming battle, They were not only worried about facing Dahlia but also about whatever trouble Claus might stir up. Marcel was convinced that Claus had a plan, but he wasn't sure if it would work. By this point, Claus had almost entirely lost the trust of his siblings. With only Elijah still standing by him, Haley informed the brothers that Dahlia had found the location of the safe house, and she had decided she would take her daughter and leave. But Claus vehemently opposed this, claiming he already had a plan. As they argued, Jackson burst into the safe house with Aiden's body. He placed Aiden on the table and accused Claus of killing him after his attempt to turn Aiden against the pack failed. Everyone waited for Claus to respond to the accusation. After some consideration, Claus didn't deny it. Instead, he said this was the fate of those who defy him. Jackson, furious, clashed with Claus. Elijah tried to mediate, but Haley sided with her husband. Elijah made his stance clear as well, declaring that anyone who opposed Claus would also be opposing him. He told Claus to go ahead with his plan, assuring him that he would take care of Haley and Hope. Claus left, feeling triumphant. News of Aiden's death quickly reached Rebecca and Marcel. Davina arrived in tears, and Marcel pulled her into a tight embrace, but then she pulled out the dagger capable of sealing Klaus's power.
I want you to put Klaus down.
Jackson placed the magic-suppressing bracelet on Hope. Haley also revealed her plan to Elijah. Upon learning that they had found a way to suppress Hope's magic, Elijah began to waver. At this point, Klaus had lost all of his allies. Fuming, Klaus returned to the mansion, where Camille appeared before him with tears in her eyes. She couldn't believe Klaus could be so cruel. Klaus stubbornly maintained that he was nothing more than a ruthless monster, with tears streaming down her face. Camille said that even if Freya had ulterior motives, she hadn't killed Aiden.
She didn't just murder an innocent guy.
And neither did I.
Klaus's response left Camille shocked. Even somewhat confused and hopeful, Klaus admitted that his goal was merely to sow discord between Haley and the werewolves. He believed that as long as he remained powerful enough to instill fear in them, Haley wouldn't dare take the child and leave him. Camille is moved to tears, but in the next moment, Klaus said this was just a common trick men used to pacify women, adding that he was different from ordinary men. He enjoyed leaving Camille burdened with a truth that no one else would believe, then turned and walked away. When Klaus returned to his room, he found his brother staring blankly at his artwork. Elijah had figured out that Klaus had mixed their father's ashes into the paint. The ashes of the Viking and the soil from their homeland had been turned into oil paint. Elijah then revealed that he had let Haley go. Klaus was furious, and the two brothers began to fight. Klaus overpowered his brother and demanded to know why Elijah would start a war they were destined to lose. Elijah seized the opportunity to stab Klaus with the dagger. Freya and Rebecca stood silently, watching the scene unfold. The color drained from Klaus's face, and he collapsed to the ground, unconscious. Betraying his brother caused Elijah unimaginable pain. The midnight bell tolled right on cue. Slow and mournful, Klaus awoke in a small village, entering Dahlia's consciousness while sealed by the dagger. This was the village where Dahlia and Esther once lived. The village had been ravaged by Vikings, leaving young Dahlia and Esther as the only survivors, but the raiders took Esther away. To protect her sister, Dahlia used her magic, but this became the source of all her nightmares. The raiders trapped Dahlia in a dark cabin, forcing her to use dark magic according to their demands. In return, her sister could live a carefree life. Imprisoned in darkness, Dahlia finally found a way to escape from the Vikings. Excitedly, she shared her discovery with Esther, but Esther coldly interrupted her. She had fallen in love with one of the Vikings, Michael. Esther broke her promise to her family, abandoning the sister who had sacrificed so much for her and giving up her own magical gifts. Dahlia wanted to keep her sister from leaving, but Esther was disgusted that Dahlia had dirted her clothes. Klaus watched all of this thoughtfully, but Dahlia's story didn't end there. They arrived at a desolate hillside. A young Freya had already learned to resist her aunt's control, her emotions growing increasingly intense, even affecting the weather. Freya's nose began to bleed, but she gradually calmed down under her aunt's soothing words. Dahlia explained that the firstborn witches in the family possessed destructive power. Though she coveted Freya's energy, she was also guiding Freya to control her immense magic. Yet Freya, yearning for freedom, had demonized her. Klaus asked Dahlia if Hope would possess such power. Dahlia replied that Hope's power would be even stronger, and her suffering would be even greater. Dahlia reflected on her own failure, acknowledging that she had deprived Freya of the parental love she needed. She generously invited Klaus to form an alliance with her. Klaus would provide Hope with a father's love, while Dahlia would only draw upon Hope's power and guide her in controlling her magic. But Haley would fight for her daughter to the death, and so she must die. Seeing that Klaus was already swayed, Dahlia blew a cloud of black smoke toward him. Klaus, lying in the coffin, suddenly awoke with a start. Then, despite the pain, Klaus pulled out the dagger that had sealed him. Freya was meticulously making preparations. She planned to use 3 ingredients to create a location where Dahlia would be rendered mortal, allowing Elijah to kill her, but they still needed bait. Freya finally revealed her entire plan. She intended to take Hope from Haley and use her as the bait. Having lost Klaus as a powerful ally, Elijah had no choice, but he wasn't willing to put Hope in danger. Elijah sought out Vincent, hoping he could use magic to create a decoy. But Vincent said he had long ago sworn off magic. Camille had no choice but to call Davina. The 3 women gathered together, combing through spellbooks but finding nothing. Rebecca finally came up with an idea, suggesting they try transferring the magic onto a clay doll. Camille, who didn't know a thing about witchcraft, could only go out to buy them coffee, but on her way back, she ran into Vincent. Vincent handed her a piece of paper for Rebecca, with a spell that could sever the connection between her and the children. Vincent explained that he was determined to live as an ordinary man and had refused the Coven's offer to make him their leader. Camille, sensing Vincent's true feelings, immediately resorted to playing the sympathy card.
I lost my uncle to a hex. And my brother,
Her tragic story quickly stirred Vincent's compassion, and Camille took the opportunity to lament that the decoy spell wasn't working. Vincent quickly pointed out that a fake doll wouldn't fool Dahlia. They needed the heartbeat of a living person. He then decided to help them. Elijah moved alone through the forest. He had just caught an incoming arrow with his bare hand, and a second later, he skillfully caught a flying axe. 2 heavily armed werewolves glared at him, and Jackson took the opportunity to leap forward and punch Elijah in the face. Unfazed, Elijah stood up and said he was just there to check on his niece. Jackson immediately refused him without a second thought. Elijah warned him to watch his words, adding that he couldn't even beat his brother. Jackson, however, has the nerve to say that Elijah won't do anything to him. Haley appeared just in time, and Elijah quickly explained his purpose. He needed a drop of Hope's blood to create a decoy. Haley agreed. Elijah's visit made Jackson realize something was wrong. He had become too entangled with the Mikaelsons, and he couldn't allow his people to be dragged into their war. So, Haley had to choose between him and Elijah. Without the slightest hesitation, Haley called Elijah to say goodbye.
Even if she is free of Dahlia's firstborn curse, Hope would still be Klaus's daughter. She'd inherit 1,000 years of enemies, all his anger and rage. I don't want Hope to be a Mikaelson.
Haley's decision awakened the deepest fears and the angriest demons within Klaus. He sought out Dahlia and told her he agreed to their alliance. Dahlia gently stirred the liquid in front of her, and the sky above Haley darkened with storm clouds. Dahlia and Klaus locked eyes, sharing a wicked smile. A young couple walked into a dark alley, wrapped in each other's arms, only to be stopped by Klaus, who blocked their path. He said he was hungry and hoped they could help. The man, looking bewildered, said he didn't have any money.
I'll just help myself.
Dahlia advised Klaus that he'd better eat his fill, and she specifically hypnotized a group of humans to serve as Klaus' food. Klaus flashed a satisfied smile. With Vincent's guidance, Rebecca manages to disconnect her body from the witch child. Freya's spell and trap were also ready, but Elijah's empty-handed return caught her by surprise. Elijah said he wanted to ensure Hope's safety. As he slowly approached Freya, Elijah suddenly injected Hope's blood into her body, then informed his sister that she was now the bait. Freya warned that if their aunt detected the flaw, they would all die, but Elijah was resolute. Vincent discovered that Davina was researching resurrection spells, so he encouraged her to become the leader of the Coven. That way, she could learn directly from the ancestors and harness their power. Upon learning that becoming the leader would grant her the power to use the resurrection spell once, Davina was intrigued. Freya's trap was complete. She used Klaus's paintings to form the trap, while she held a clay doll made to look like Hope as the bait. Rebecca was in charge of casting the spell. Elijah was poised for an ambush. Everything seemed flawless, but Klaus's plan for revenge had already begun. He first tracked down Marcel, subdued him without a word, and said he needed to borrow something. Klaus strung Marcel up and drained the vervain from his body, then compelled him to serve his own purposes. Freya held the clay doll in her arms. As Rebecca's spell took effect, the doll transformed into Hope's likeness. Elijah lay in wait, dagger in hand. Everything was ready. Dahlia walked toward them with the stride of a victor. Freya lies and says she's willing to give Hope to her and just begs her aunt to set her free. Dahlia rejected the deal, stating that both Hope and Freya were already hers. As Dahlia slowly stepped into the trap's range, Marcel apologized to Rebecca, then rushed forward, tackling her to the ground. The baby in Freya's hands instantly turned back into clay. Freya was horrified. She quickly grabbed Dahlia, shouting for Elijah to strike. Elijah moved at the sound but was intercepted by Claus. The two brothers fought at once, furious at her niece's betrayal. Dahlia raised her hand and sent Freya flying. Elijah tried to reason with Claus, but Claus was unmoved, soon overpowering his brother. Still bewildered by Elijah's act of sealing him, Claus declared he was going to take something from him. Claus compelled Gia to step into the sunlight and instructed her to remove her daylight ring. As Elijah watched in despair and anguish, Gia was engulfed in flames, burning alive. Dahlia also subdued Freya, cruelly telling her that she had been wrong. Freya was never her beloved witch. The plan had failed. With a casual wave, Dahlia put Freya into a deep sleep. An enraged Elijah continued to grapple with his brother. The two tumbled down from the second floor, but Elijah was no match for Claus, who seized the opportunity to drive the curved dagger into his chest. The dagger slowly burrowed into Elijah's body. Camille happened to witness the scene. She could hardly believe her eyes and tried to convince Claus to return to the right path. Claus' expression becomes complicated.
Is there a problem?
Not at all. Just another victim.
No.
He slowly approached Camille, who still believed he wouldn't hurt her. Under Dahlia's watchful gaze, Claus bit into Camille's neck. Marcel dragged Rebecca in front of Claus. Claus did not execute his sister. Instead, he ordered Marcel to imprison Rebecca. If she ever tried to escape, Marcel was to kill the person he loved most. Dahlia was indifferent to Klaus's decision, only stating that Hope's magic was still hidden and that she needed Klaus's blood to locate her. Rebecca pleaded with her brother not to go through with it, but Claus resolutely bit into his hand, letting his blood drip into his aunt's palm.